Humans of the Cardboard, welcome back again. We push forward with even more Rage of the Abyss reveals. I think we have 5 new cards tonight. To me, they look so far like they are just all, I guess, free agent cards is the term that Konami likes to use. Those are just cards that are somewhat generic and apply to a couple different archetypes or decks or something. And if you look at the artwork from the reveal, none of them really seem to have like consistent artwork. So I don't think they're part of an archetype or anything. So let's just go in backwards order of when they were revealed here by YG Organization. They do an amazing job. Let's start here with Turu Purun. Level 2 Aqua. That's already not nothing, straight up. This is a level 2 Water Aqua, of course, because Toad is scary. Also, some of the Paleo cards are a little scary as well. We'll see. This is 450 attack, 500 defense. You can only use the effect of this card once per turn. If this card is in your hand, you can target a water monster in your main monster zone as cost. Destroy that monster you control, and if you do, special summon this card to the zone it was in. Then you can destroy all opponents' face-up cards in this card's column. Interesting card. Not totally sure this card is all that in a box of chocolates. I believe the one thing this card can do is trigger Dupe Frog. I know Dupe Frog can miss timing. I don't believe this is one of the ways Dupe Frog can miss timing, but let me know if it does. That's the one interesting interaction with this card. Other than that, as far as being a level 2 Aqua, it's not that impressive, right? This is just a main phase effect, so you can't do anything on your opponent's turn that's cheeky to like summon this. It's only from hand, so sending this with Swap Frog doesn't really change anything for you as well. And yeah, I mean, like, the column thing is fun, but like, how consistent is setting up columns that way? And it's not even that good of removal anyway. For me, this card is just, it's interesting in the fact that its stats are interesting, but outside of that, I'm really not too impressed with its effects. It's just okay to me overall. Next card we have here. I'm not disabling that. All right. This is Protostar, Dragon of the Void. Very cool looking card here. I almost thought this card, because of the green lights in its design, I almost thought this looked like a Memento. Because Mementos kind of have the lights, and a lot of their fusions have like the bright lights in their fusion stuff. But anyway, there's a level 8 light dragon fusion, 25/25 for the stats. This card's materials are 1 light or dark dragon monster plus another dragon monster. So lo and behold, another nasty super poly target. In fact, this may be the kind of card that like keeps Dragon Link from ever being a super like like the best deck in the game again. Honestly, because Super Poly decimates that deck now because of this card. 2 once per turn effects on top of that. The first one reads, if this card is fusion summoned, you can target cards your opponent controls up to the number of light and dark monsters used as its materials. Destroy them. So this card is at worst popping 1 card, but sometimes popping 2. So imagine super polying your opponent, ripping 2 dragons off their board, and then popping probably 2 cards, because the dragons they play in Dragon Link are entirely light and dark, basically. So ripping 2 cards off the field without them being able to respond to it, then summoning a 2500 beater that's also popping 2 more cards. It's actually kind of insane. Second effect, if this card becomes banished, you can target a level 4 light or dark dragon monster you controlled, so level becomes 8. That effect's not that crazy. I would have liked this more if there was more of a recursion effect. That way, actually banishing it off of your dragon stuff made this actually like somewhat of a bonus, but I get it. It's already like a pretty generic fusion monster that also has a decent effect on summon. I get it that they didn't want to make one more broken effect. All in all, I think this is a pretty good card. I think it's also important to keep in mind that there are certain things like extra utility for this. Like, not only can this hurt Dragon Link a lot with Super Poly, but also Dragon Link can make this decently easy. So that's another thing to keep in mind. I don't know how. I guess the easiest way they can make it on your opponent's turn is potentially by using seals on your opponent's turn to summon Albaz, and then Albaz fusing himself plus any other dragon into this on the opponent's turn to then pop 2 more cards from there, especially if your opponent controls. In a dragon matchup, like Albaz ripping a dragon out the field after you've just bounced something with seals, and then popping 2 cards from there, that is really strong. That's 4 pieces of removal right there, just off of seals basically, and a card in hand. But Dragon Link has a lot of tools. I'm not sure this card is necessarily so mandatory, so good for them. I also don't know Dragon Link that well, so you need to let me know if this card is like how important that is for them or detrimental it is with Super Poly. Next up here, we move to this card. This is Dream Absorber. I almost thought this was an Ice Jade card at first. Definitely was getting like Ice Jade vibes. In fact, this still might be a Ice Jade artwork, but that's not what this card is, clearly. It's a level 2 water fairy, not an aqua, like our boy down here. But this is 0 attack, 0 defense. You can only use the first effect once per turn. If your opponent activates a monster effect in hand, graveyard, or banishment, so just anywhere but field, basically, you can special summon this card from grave if it was there when the effect was activated, or hand even if not, but destroy it during the end phase. Second effect, each time your opponent activates a monster effect, this card gains 1000 attack immediately after it resolves. Oh! Again, this is like a somewhat generic card. This jumps out of the hand relatively easily, but it doesn't do anything to affect your opponent. Yes, it can kind of like get big, but I just don't, like, it destroys itself on end phase. So summoning this onto the field going second doesn't really do anything, because it's just going to destroy itself on end phase, and you basically just lost the card for nothing. So like ideally, you're summoning this on your turn, but then like you're waiting for your opponent to activate something just to even get this card out of the hand. I just don't really understand this card. This card just really doesn't make too much sense for me overall. This one's probably a pass for me as well. All right, now this card I think is super interesting just based on the artwork. I believe this is a new Union monster. Yep, Union Pilot. It has very hard... what is that guy's name? Union Driver, I think is his name. So very big Union Driver vibes. In fact, it's also a level 5, so we'll see how this card works. But yeah, this has potential, especially with the new XYZ cards pairing with the ABC cards. There's potential for a card like this to be nasty here, but we'll see how we go. All right, so Union Pilot is a level 5 light machine Union effect monster, 1000 for the stats. You can only use the second effect of this card's name once per turn. First effect, I'm assuming this is just classic Union stuff. Once per turn, you can either target an effect monster opponent control, you control, equip this card to it, or unequip this card and special summon it. If the monster is currently equipped, it would be destroyed. You can destroy this card instead. Yep, classic Union effect. That is not once per turn at all. It's soft once per turn, but that doesn't really change anything. Second effect, you can return this equipped card to the hand to equip one of your banished Union monsters to one of your appropriate monsters as if it were equipped by that Union monster's effect. And if you do, special summon this card from your hand. Okay. Okay, Union Pilot, I see you. Respect. Okay. This card, to me, if I'm not going crazy here, does this card just completely power creep Union Driver out of the deck entirely? Even if you still played Union Driver. And I'll say this, I've already seen a couple of the OCG deck lists messing around with the new cards, and they don't even play Union Driver. But the fact that this just is an extra engine piece that you basically can just... gets you an extra body, right? Like, because the deck seems to not mind that much about the restriction of like Union Hanger and stuff like that, and the quick play spell. But this card, one, working around that to make the deck just a little bit better at working around that restriction, which is still there. It's not as detrimental as it was before, but it's still there. Being able now to work around that, and I believe Union Driver just had to send himself to grave, if I'm not mistaken, or I think he banishes himself to equip from deck. I can't remember which one, but either way, he doesn't give you a resource. This one just does the same thing, but then also just summons itself, so you do get another body out of that. That to me is just a clear power creep on that. Is this card mandatory? Not sure. I really don't know, because one, the decks have already chosen that like they don't need Union Driver in the first place. So do they need this card? I don't know, because it works in almost the exact same role. It just does what Union Driver did, but better. You do the exact same thing, but you just end up with an actual body on field. So I don't know about that fully. Could be a one of in the deck, just to increase the power of the deck just slightly. But same role as Union Driver, it is a pretty rough brick, especially being a level 4 or a level 5 monster. So we cannot, normal summon this at all. If you hard draw it, it's pretty annoying. The deck doesn't do a ton of discarding naturally, aside from obviously ending on the fusions and discarding for them. But you know what I mean? You're still drawing a brick and potentially not being able to play as well as you'd otherwise would be just by having this card in hand. But all in all, I do think it's still an interesting card. Could be a one of in the deck, just increase power output a little bit, but not entirely sure just yet, because the deck does already have a little bit of brickage going on. Some of the pieces just already kind of by default count as bricks, so we'll see. All right, and the final card here is also interesting to me because I saw the name End Exalting Morganite. This is another Morganite card. I do think the last Morganite card is still a strong card by default, but we'll see. Like, it just hasn't had a home. It's been played in a couple of like stun decks that don't play like monster hand traps. We'll see how this card goes. All right, normal spell card. Apply these effects for the rest of the duel. We'll see. You cannot activate monster effects in the hand. Okay, so same thing as the other one. No monster hand traps really. Or any monsters that need to activate an effect in hand to summon themselves. Everything else is still fair game. Each of your monsters can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. So not in general, but just on monsters. But to be fair, it is also every one of your monsters. That's not even good. Okay. If your monster battles an opponent's monster, damage it inflicts your opponent is doubled. Oh, only when it battles an opponent's monster, though. Okay, again, not like terrible. Also, you can banish this card from your graveyard to add 1 Morganite card from your deck to your hand, then place 1 card from your hand on the bottom of the deck. Ooh, okay. Interesting. And according to this, it appears you can just do them both of these effects in the same turn. So you can just straight up activate this to make it so you're getting the double attacks, you're getting the double damage, and then you just go ahead and grab the regular Morganite anyway, and you can fire that immediately as well. Interesting stuff here. For me, I am struggling with this card. I'm kind of failing to see like the full payoff. In a deck where you can activate monster effects in hand, I struggle to see how you put like enough bodies on field, or even big enough bodies. Like if you're normal summoning stuff like your Fossil Dynas and your stun monsters, like, do these effects even matter? The whole point of that type of deck anyway is like you're straight up locking your opponent out of anything anyway. So they're not even getting to much regardless, and it doesn't even buff your monsters. It does let them attack twice, it does allow them to do double damage, but it doesn't buff them at all. So if your opponent can get bigger than them with a normal summon or something, this card doesn't really do much to protect them. So the second effect makes it interesting, the fact that this card can just search Morganite, but I'm still not sure it's worth it, because this card's own effects are just not giving me enough merit to want to play this card. So for me, I would rather just play Morganite and not even worry about this card, and kind of keep it simple, keep it strictly to kind of that scenario. But that's where I end up on it. Interesting cards overall. I mean, free agents, normally when we get drops like these cards are not like too crazy out of this world. I would say still the most interesting one to me is probably the Union Pilot. I really could see a scenario where he's actually like a pretty just solid one-of in the deck. Oh, actually, you know what? The Fusion. It's got to be the Fusion. Sorry. The Fusion just being on the merit of being a super poly deck, on the merit of Konami gives so many dragon support cards all the time that like this card is generically really abusable in the deck. So I would not be surprised if this card is just super abusable for them. But then it's this guy, and then I guess from there, the other two just really don't interest me at all, the water ones, unfortunately. But the Morganite one's like at least somewhat interesting because of that, of grabbing any other Morganite card. Also opens the door, low-key, for us to get like more Morganite cards. That's the other piece that maybe makes this card a little more interesting, is like you can almost just consider this a ROTA for other Morganites. So if we do get more, then I do like it a little more, right? If we actually get another Morganite that is like similar in terms of power to the main one we have now, the Time Rendering Morganite, I think is the full name, but maybe just has different versatility, then I can see this card being a little bit better, because then you get to like pick and choose which one's better in which scenario, kind of thing, and we could go from there. But for right now, just okay, just not worth it. Just play regular Morganite over this, I think. But yeah, that's everything I have for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, as always. Let me know your thoughts down below on these cards. Is there anything I'm kind of missing here that gives a little extra oomph to some of these cards, if I'm kind of underplaying them a little bit? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that stuff. See if there's any extra insight that I'm not catching here. You guys are the best with that. But I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching, as always, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.